Hello and welcome. We thank you for joining us today for this webinar. We have some really engaging speakers for you today, and we're going to be talking about the WebRTC market outlook for 2017. First, we have Sahi Levent-Levy with over 18 years of telecommunications experience. Sahi is the man behind bloggeek.me and a leading authority on WebRTC. Joining Sahi is Nick Reed, Vidyo's Senior Vice President of Product Management, and is responsible for driving Vidyo's product vision and strategy. Together, they will discuss the constantly evolving market of WebRTC and embedded video and touch on what you can expect in 2017. Before I hand it over to Sahi and Nick, we first want to start off with a poll question for the audience. So the question is, do you have a video-enabled application deployed in production today? Yes, no, or planned for release later this year? So Nick, Sahi, while we're waiting on some responses to come in, do you have any thoughts on how the audience might respond to this question?
I'm hoping to see lots. I'm hoping to see lots of production deployments that we can kind of talk about and analyze. We know that there are certainly some in our day-to-day conversations. So it'll be interesting to see how many people on the call are actually in that camp.
So I actually submitted yes, because I've got this embedded in parts of my website, in things that I do with customers today, and I decided to do something that is branded with my name on it, so I simply embedded it. So I'm hoping to see many customers or people as well doing that.
Okay, great. So just a reminder for the audience, select your answer and then click the submit button. We're just going to switch over in a moment and see how the poll turned out. Interesting. So it looks like a little better than 65% said yes, with 15.8% no, but 18.4% planned for release later this year. Is that what you guys expected? Anything interesting there that you see?
No, that sounds great. It means that there's a lot of people with a lot of experience on the call, which is exactly the kind of people we want to speak to. So that's great.
Okay, great.
Yes, it's a lot more than the standard in the industry, I guess.
Sure. Okay. So with that, Sahi, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you take it away.
Thank you, Ben. So, to set the stage a bit, I am assuming that everyone here knows what WebRTC is. If you don't, WebRTC enable doing voice and video services over the internet, over the browser, without installing anything. Just something, So when you do that, you essentially enable people to use a browser, not install a thing, and get things done with it. So you can build things that are regular video conferencing, you can do things that are in the streaming space and in other different use cases. We'll see a few in a moment. And WebRTC at the end of the day is just a piece of technology. You build whatever you want on top of it. And this is what we see today. A lot of different companies and people and entrepreneurs and developers just tinkering and playing with the technology and doing stuff with it. Now, one thing that I started doing last year was to look at the market state of WebRTC and the different companies that are using WebRTC. I started collecting them about 4 years ago when I started looking at WebRTC more closely. It became a data set that I'm using and researching. And every year I build this infographic around them. And this year, Vidyo partnered with me, so thank you guys for that, in order to get this statistics and infographic to the market. So I want to share that information with you today. And the first thing that we wanted to look at this year, because of all the changes, is where are browsers with WebRTC at today. If you open your laptop or desktop, okay, and you open a browser, what are the scoring that I would give to different browsers? So, Chrome is easily somewhere up there. I'd give it an 8. Okay, just because it makes sense. they do things. They are the most progressive when it comes to implementing WebRTC. They're also considered the industry standard. We'll see in a second why. Then there's Firefox, lagging behind a bit in certain areas and certain features. And then there's Microsoft Edge. Now remember that this one, this infographic was done last month. So it was before the announcement that Microsoft came up with last week about supporting WebRTC officially and interoperability of video capabilities inside the browser that will come this year, probably during the fall. That's because they had limited video support. I gave them lower scoring. Then we've got Safari, Apple Safari. There are signs of hope for 2017. Nobody really knows when this is going to be out. We've seen a year ago that they had job descriptions on their website, and then people started playing with WebKit, and they started coming to the standardization bodies and listening, and so things are happening.
And actually, on that point, we see some interesting code pushes into the WebKit in the last month or so. So I think there seems to heating up, I'd say, is the way that I'd put it. And I think that I think Carl Morelli on the questions were asking this question. So I think it's everyone is watching Apple. We're expecting announcement. Well, I personally am expecting an announcement this year, but I was expecting an announcement last year, so I might be disappointed. We'll see.
Exactly. I don't say anymore because for the last 2 years I've been expecting, but no delivery yet. So not something that I do anymore. Now, for those of you who are looking to get on Microsoft Internet Explorer WebRTC support, this is not planned. So Microsoft is probably planning to kill that browser, or trying to, without much success. And they trying to migrate everyone to Windows 10 and Edge. So they're not adding new stuff on the old browser anymore. Now, I have a question for you, Nick. And that would be, when you look at that table and where Vidyo and Vidyo.io are today, what do you really see on your side?
So I think that's a great question. And just kind of winding over into our support, a couple of weeks ago we announced the generally available launch of our Vidyo.io service. We've had it in beta, and it's been sort of out for a number of months now. We've had a lot of people playing with it. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to kind of provide a polyfill, I think is the webbish term that a lot of people use, which kind of makes it so that it eases the transition, if you like, so that we know that WebRTC is the future. We're really committed to that as a future, but we also know that there are, particularly in some geos, there are huge deployed bases of, particularly in corporate clients as well, where they're just not moving away from the older browsers as rapidly as we'd like to see that happen. And so we want to make it so that with the Vidyo.io service, if you program to that top level API that we've made really simple, then the platform will kind of fix that for you. It'll use WebRTC where possible, but then it will fail back to a very quick to install plugin where it's not possible. So we're kind of trying to make it as easy as we can for developers. And so if just taking step by step, obviously Chrome and Firefox, we support WebRTC natively, in all its forms: content share, video, receiving tiles, sending tiles, encoding, all that kind of good stuff. We've got some prototype work on Edge at the moment. We're as everyone else is sort of ingesting the release that Microsoft made a couple of weeks ago. So very soon we'll have great support on that Edge developer preview. So by the time it goes out in a live version, we'd expect to have that fully supported in Vidyo.io as well. And then with Safari and IE, at the moment it's a small plugin that gets downloaded automatically, and you can, as I said, program to that same API and not have to worry about it. As we see WebRTC coming into we'll never come into IE, but as it comes into Safari, then there'll be a sort of a smooth transition. Probably initially where developers can make the choice whether it's WebRTC or plugin, but then eventually we would expect it just all to be WebRTC, and that's our kind of plan.
Now it's not here, but I have to ask, what are you doing with mobile at the moment?
That's also a great question. So with the Vidyo.io service, we have SDKs or kind of packages that you can download today for iOS and Android. Interestingly, Android package supports both Android on x86 and also Android on ARM. So that we're seeing, I know Intel have kind of sort of stepped back a little bit from the mobile space, but we're definitely seeing Android on x86 as being important in some Internet of Things domains. So we have really great, and of course, when we talk about mobile, we're really obsessive about getting great performance out of mobile as well. So we've got engineers that are hand tuning SMID instructions, all sorts of great stuff to try and make that mobile experience really compelling. It's the same API as on any of the rest of the platforms as well. So it's log into Vidyo.io and you can kind of download that and get started.
Okay.
So
Thank
we
you.
might move on to the next slide. So I think this is back to you, Zahid. Talk a little bit about
Yes, I guess.
adoption.
Yes, if you look at the market today, and I'm following that we see here from 2014. I started it 2013, I think, or the end of 2012, where what I did was whenever I found a company, a vendor, or a very interesting project or high-profile project that made use of WebRTC, I simply logged it in my notes. And today I'm doing that as part of the daily work that I do is looking and searching for these companies. And what you see is that there is a stable state of around a vendor and something a day that I find about, a vendor on a work day that makes use of WebRTC. So the number is growing, and today I'm tracking over 1,100 different vendors and projects doing WebRTC. And it's continuing effort. And that's quite a lot if you think about it. We started 5 years ago with WebRTC. People in 2015, 2016 still said things like, it doesn't work in Safari or Internet Explorer. It can't be used. But what you see at the end of the day, that there is adoption of this technology, and these are vendors that are using it and saying that they are using WebRTC to do something. A lot of them are commercially available, commercially running in production, and some of them are also money-based. So it's not just free projects that run out there. Money goes through these products and through these services.
Great. So just to put a little bit of context about how Vidyo plays into the whole WebRTC evolution. Obviously, Vidyo with a Y, it's been around, a little bit longer than WebRTC as a technology, and but it's interesting that from a technology standpoint, it very much parallels a lot of the thoughts that have gone into WebRTC. So we're natively multi-stream from the beginning. We were very early on in implementing the H.264 SVC, the scalable extensions to the SVC codecs. We work very closely with Google on IP licensing, and a whole sort of a number of different kind of milestones that we've hit over the intervening years between when the company started and the beginning of WebRTC. And so with the rise of WebRTC, we're really excited that Vidyo now has a kind of the industry is caught up in a way and has seen the potential for non-composited, ubiquitous multi-stream video in any form factor. And the Vidyo.io service that we launched is really, I suppose, the kind of our latest and greatest, easiest to use packaging of the video technology in a form that is modern and very very easy to use in just about any form factor that you like. So it's that whole evolution. We're really pleased to be part of that WebRTC kind of explosion. Maybe back to you, Sahi. Actually, no, before we get there, I thought it would be worth just putting a little bit of color on the idea of an SFU. So it's a pretty key concept when we're talking about particularly multi-party video, and it's worth just spending 30 seconds kind of highlighting what is an SFU and why does it matter. So an SFU is a selective forwarding unit. So it's a network component. These days it's generally a software component. In days gone by, it might have been a piece of physical hardware that you placed in your network somewhere, and it's we call it a video router. That's the video with a Y router. That's the trademark that we we have in the past sold this capability under. And what it really does is it's an intelligent unit in the network that's able to make real-time decisions about what streams to send where, and moreover, what qualities, what resolutions, what frame rates to send to which endpoints. The upshot of this is that you can have a range of different form factors of endpoint over different, very, very different kinds of networks, all interacting in a comfortable way in creating a high-quality multi-party experience. So you can have a massive room system with big 4K cameras and 4K attached displays, and that can be interacting in the same conference as some mobile participants and some desktop participants, and you'll get whatever resolution and frame rate that makes sense in the form factor that you're working on. So some of the I suppose the differentiation that we bring, being Vidyo and being the patent holder behind a lot of the kind of thoughts here, is some alternative services might introduce some simulcast technology, which is a kind of a big little approach. You encode a big version of the image and a little tile version of the stream. You send both up to the SFU, and it decides, am I an active speaker and therefore I send the big image, or I send the little, otherwise I send the little tile. And it's a very blocky kind of approach to. There's not a lot of analog adjustability in that kind of model. So what we do is something different to that. It's true scalability, true spatial scalability. So we're sending a muxed together stream of different sizes or different resolutions of image interleaved with different frame rates, so that our version of the SFU can make very intelligent and granular decisions about what to send where. So we can adjust spatially and temporally, so resolution and also frame rate in a very flexible way. The other nice aspect of the Vidyo SFU is that's kind of unique is we support a mode called cascading, and this is where you can have with the Vidyo.io service, we actually have 7 points of presence around the world now, and they all have banks or clusters of these SFUs, and they can hand off streams between them in intelligent ways. So if you have a 20-person conference and there are a bunch of them are in Asia and a bunch of them are in the US, you're not trying to transport a mesh of streams across international lines. You're sending the Asia Pac streams to the Asia Pac SFU. They're being bundled together and sent at the highest quality possible over to an SFU that might be on the West Coast of the US, and then they're distributed out to the endpoints, and that's all happening. These decisions are being made in real time, and just being adjusted. So it's a very uniquely scalable model, and it's what underpins the Vidyo.io service.
I actually had a colleague of mine that dabbles in WebRTC and is very known in the market, in the industry, look at VP9 and how SVC is implemented there. And what he said rang true to me. He said, when you compare SVCs to simulcast is a hack, where SVC is a real thing.
No, absolutely. And
so
we're really pleased to actually, that's a great point, is that our codec team was really pleased to be asked by Google to help add the scalability extensions to VP9. So all the code that your friend was looking at in the VP9 implementation is actually work that was optimized by Danny Hong and our bunch of codec PhDs sitting in New Jersey. So we're really pleased to be part of that as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, to dumb it down a bit for developers, okay, if you think about it, the differences between simulcast and SVC when it comes to doing multi-party videos, think of it as moving from running XHR and Comet style messaging over a browser and switching from that to a WebSocket. Okay, you get a whole new ballgame, different level of interactivity that you can reach just because you have that capability.
That's a nice analogy. I like it.
Thanks. Now, I want to move back to the vendors and the vendors that we've seen. And when I take these 1,100 vendors that I look at, And when I tried figuring out what exactly it is that they are doing, then I get to this kind of an understanding. Let's take a look first on the left side of this chart, this slide. Okay, what we see here is the different businesses or models or use cases that these vendors are employing in their products. And most of them today are either building a very specific vertical or are doing something in customer management. It might be click to call, contact center related, things like that. Then you've got the video conferencing and telephony and other things, and they're still big. And then somewhere down there is consulting and outsourcing and streaming for services. And the first thing that you notice is that if I go back to verticals and customer management, these are the largest growing use cases that we have today, and they are still growing. Each one of them is growing every year. So we see more companies doing these types of things. If we look at the verticals themselves and we try to look what kinds of verticals are there, then healthcare and education are the biggest ones. They are the largest ones by far. Experts market is somewhere between education and e-commerce, I would say, e-commerce of knowledge. Now, what happens here is if in the past we looked at unified communication and video conferencing, and we've seen solutions that are relevant to healthcare and to education, and these solutions came from product companies, this is no longer the case. Companies are building healthcare vendors or suppliers of healthcare and education are building their own systems using WebRTC, and they are doing that either by employing open source components or by using a communication platform as a service, something like Vidyo.io or Vidyo.io, to build these kinds of solutions. So they no longer rely directly on video conferencing or unified communication to get that done. And that's a very important distinction, because it says that on one hand, the unified communication and video conferencing market might even be shrinking or not growing as fast as it was expected. But there are this whole slew of verticals that now use communication as just a feature of what they are doing. And they're adding these capabilities directly into their processes. On the other side, we've got the fastest growing use cases. And this is a trend that changed. It wasn't there last year. And the two biggest ones are live streaming and consulting and outsourcing. Live streaming became huge this year. Probably parts of it is because of things like Facebook Live, okay, Meerkat, Periscope, all of these kinds of services. Everybody today is looking to find out what it means to do live streaming, and they find out that doing that means using WebRTC. Parts of it is probably because Flash is dying and you can't use it anymore. Browsers are just removing it from being available. Chrome 56 and 57, I think, are going to start opting in for that. You'll need to opt in to use Flash in the website, even if you got it installed. So there are reasons why you need to move from Flash to something else. And WebRTC is the only thing that can get you real time inside the browser. HLS and MPEG Dash are good, but they do have latency built into them. Now, the other interesting part is consulting and outsourcing. That part grew by 100% from, just a year ago. So it's not large. It's just a small piece of the market, 6% of the companies. But this means that the ecosystem around WebRTC is alive and healthy. Okay? We have these companies that today are there just in order to help developers or help those that have a dream to build it. They will build it for you. Again, either on top of open source components, without them, just on a browser. They will use a communication platform as a service to do that, whatever it is. So if you have something that you need done, but you don't have the R&D, the developers to be able to do that, there are vendors that are there to help you get there faster. Now, to me, Nick, it would be interesting to see what do you see on video side for these exact things, these exact different market and use cases that come along. What have you seen with the Vidyo.io beta that you've run for the couple of months that you were out there with it?
No, absolutely. Thanks, Sahi. So it's absolutely the trend that we're seeing. So this movement away from kind of dedicated purpose video conferencing, whether that's desktop video conferencing or any other kind of, what we might think of as conventional video conferencing, really is not. It's stagnant. It's obviously a lot of it going on, but the real trend is towards breaking open your video conferencing client and smashing it into some other kind of workflow. So whether that's the big ones that we see are things like customer engagement. We've got a huge, whole bunch of customer engagement projects that we've worked on. People like, some really big brand name banks that are now integrating the video stack, video with a Y stack, into their own, just the native Android or iOS apps. Okay, so the stack is there, latent inside the iOS app, ready so that if you want at some point to talk to someone about a mortgage, you click the button and then suddenly that person appears. And it's in quality, it's on a mobile, it's not going to kill your battery life, it's going to look great. And that's really important for those sorts of premier financial institutions where where you can't sort of, it's not acceptable for someone who's telling you about how to apply for a mortgage to be frozen up against the side and pixelated. It just needs to be a great, very natural experience when you're when you're working in that kind of space. And so we've seen some great traction there. I noticed that there's maybe someone from NCR on the call, which is fantastic. Welcome, Gordon. But NCR is another terrific example of the sort of partnership that we're really pleased to be a part of, and that's NCR have built their latest generation of interactive telemachine. So it's like an ATM on steroids with a beautiful big high definition display and a great quality camera and audio all built into it. And being an Australian, I know that I'm quite proud about the fact that some of the initial deployments of this are actually in Australia, as I understand it, and they have this mode of operation where it's a bank branch with absolutely no people there, no physical people there. But you can walk up, you can put your card in, you can log in, and there's a centralized bank of specialized tellers who can help you complete any kind of banking interaction through this great quality NCR machine that they've developed. So that's a great example of a kind of an Internet of Things use case. Epic is for those who aren't aware, is the kind of the dominant player, definitely the biggest name in healthcare records in the US. They're a massive deal. The majority of healthcare groups use Epic software for healthcare tracking, and so we've seen some great projects there where we're integrating the video stack that comes in behind Vidyo IO into the healthcare records platform, so that it's very easy to initiate telemedicine type interactions with users. Genesys is the kind of the number one player in the customer engagement space. So lots of the kind of the financial institutions I'm talking about, but also retail companies and anyone who's running big call centers is now thinking about, well, how can I add video into the experience to really drive up? So, I mean, we could spend a whole hour talking about customer engagement, but the big trend in customer engagement for me is this split. We always used to have the horrible old telebanking experience or telephone call center hell, where you have to type in the numbers, you have to type in a bunch of codes to get into wherever you need to get. And what we're seeing replacing that in 2016 and 2017 is a split between the kind of the immediate chat-based models. So you start by chatting, text chat on a go to a website, and then first thing that pops up is you want to chat to someone. That's great, but then it's when you want to go to that next step and you have some serious questions and you're closer to a buy decision or some sort of big deal, you click the video button and then suddenly you're in and you're having you're speaking to a real person, and it's as engaging as almost as engaging as actually being in a store. And it's really, we're seeing the distinction between the clicks and the bricks sort of being eradicated, and so that you can have chat to video in a customer engagement scenario. It's really easy to achieve with some of these technologies. And then the last kind of one that I wanted to to point out here was a customer we're very proud of, and that's Bloomberg. Bloomberg is, I suppose, if you think of a spectrum between video conferencing clients, like the traditional video conferencing at this end, and highly embedded, workflow specific video enablement on this end, they're kind of a bit more towards the video conferencing end, but they've got a completely branded experience. So they have their own service that they call Nexi, and it's branded Bloomberg, and it's integrated deeply with their terminal for calendaring and all that kind of good stuff. And it's a version of the video software that's just been skinned to look like a Bloomberg software, and we're really pleased to have them as a customer. And it just shows that one size does not fit all. There are going to be so many different forms that video can be inserted into workflows, and we think it's transformative in so many use cases. All right, I think
that I guess.
So
that I guess, yes, that I guess leads to the part that if you look at the fact that there are so many different ways and variations of where you want to embed these types of interactions, it brings to this, a new class of vendors or companies that we now refer to as CPaaS, Communication Platform as a Service vendors. And the way I see it today, there are two approaches to play in this market today. You can either be a horizontal player, or what you have on offer today is everything. You provide the different tools and the different communication means, and just give all of them. And then you play the best of suite kind of a game where you have everything and you must be able to cover everything. Or you see vertical players, and these will take a very specific use case or very specific communication mean and drill down to it to provide the best possible experience there. Okay, to give the example, you've got, for example, Twilio. And Twilio is a horizontal player, the classical horizontal player. If you want to do something that has everything in it, you can go and just get it from Twilio. They do voice, SMS, two-factor authentication, IP messaging, video communication. They acquired the company in order to be able to do that. They do things like queuing, another mechanism that they have there. And whenever there is something new that comes out, they need to go and invest in that to add that into their platform. Then there are the horizontal players. So for example, you've got Layer that does only IP messaging and does that probably very well. And then you've got Vidyo.io that does video communication and enables you to place that into different types of interactions. Now you see vendors or you see companies that go in for the best of suite approach, where they will want one vendor to supply everything to them. Like, we go to Twilio, you get it all. Or then they might say, well, but you want something specialized, different, better with these types of features that you can't find in the best of suite approach, but you need the best of breed for video communications. And then you start seeing these companies splitting between the different vendors that they would go to for CPaaS. Okay, the same way as you go and buy DNS from one vendor, and then the website from another, and the CMS platform for another, and just bake it all together into a website. That's the way you see communications today. Either someone that goes and buys everything wholesale from someone, or picks and chooses what he needs, depending on where he's at. And I think that Vidyo.io brings a very different story into the market with a very interesting flavor into it. Because of things like SVC and understanding the enterprise and having these years of experience around video communications and how to do them, almost better than everyone else out there.
Thanks. So maybe that's a good segue just to talk a little bit about the service that we're offering. Now, Vidyo.io is absolutely, we'd consider it a WebRTC service, but it's not just a WebRTC service. It's beyond that as well, and that's really reflecting on the fact that, as Sahi pointed out towards the beginning of the webinar, WebRTC is still evolving, still changing. It's there are lots of platforms where the coverage is not perfect yet. So for that reason, we wanted to provide just that normalized experience that makes it very simple for people who aren't specialists in video, specialists in other areas to be able to just take that package and get up and going very quickly. And the sorts of challenges that you run into, I mean, WebRTC is terrific, but the sort of challenges that you run into that are maybe not obvious are things like, all of the networking issues, all the NAT traversal and the proxy discovery and kind of, turn and stun and ice and re-icing and, all of these kinds of concerns that the basic WebRTC point-to-point experience might work when you're connecting from, one open Wi-Fi access point to another. But maybe it doesn't work all that well when you're trying to traverse different regions or into corporate networks or complex double NAT scenarios, and all that sort of stuff is really where we've spent a lot of time, a lot of engineering effort trying to work that out and make it as simple as we can. Another area that is quite tricky is, I alluded to it earlier, is optimization of the codecs and of the kind of the client-side code, particularly in the mobile space. Mobile WebRTC is very, it's even further back than what we talked about in terms of the adoption. So Chrome on Android is decent. You can get some decent things going with WebRTC. WebRTC on iOS is not really there at all, as you'd expect, because Apple is still working on desktop Safari, let alone mobile Safari. So it's just being able to provide that very broad base of platforms and do so in an optimized way. So you have to think about rendering pipelines. You need to think about resource management. What happens if the amount of bandwidth that you had suddenly reduces because you swap between, you're driving in the car and you're swapping between cells as you hand off on 4G LTE. How should that work? Should you be able to kind of smoothly transition down to a low bandwidth mode and then smoothly ramp back up again? And that stuff is not so easy to do, and that's really the value that we think we can bring to people who are just looking to, as I said before, smash that multi-party high quality experience into something their line of business, their workflow, whatever that happens to be. So it's just that kind of enterprise grade video quality that we're seeking to provide. I think we're on to another polling question now. Ben.
Yes, thanks, Nick. Okay, everyone, it's time for our next poll question. The question is, which verticals are targeting your video-enabled applications? So if you could just make your selection and make sure that you hit the submit button down at the bottom so that we can collect your responses. And Nick, Zahi, do you guys have any bets? I know we talked about this earlier. Do you think one specific vertical or use case will stand out versus the others? Zahi, I think you're muted.
You're muted, mate.
Yes. So my bet is on either healthcare or customer engagement.
Yeah.
I would go with healthcare, so I will be able to say that I lost.
Okay. I'm going to cheat a little bit and base my answer on some of the questions that I'm seeing coming in and the organizations. So I'm going to say maybe education, like a bit of a dark horse. We'll see. But it'll be interesting. Healthcare, education, and customer engagement are probably the big three that I'd be expecting to see. Yeah.
Okay. Well, without further ado, let's take a look and see what the responses are. Neck and neck, really, between healthcare and customer education.
There we go. Nice work. Nailed it.
All right, gentlemen,
Yes.
I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. So another thing that I look at in these things, in these data sets, is the M&As, the acquisitions that happen that relate to WebRTC. Now, this can be acquisitions that are fully related to WebRTC. That would be something like, I think it was 2014, Snapchat went and acquired AdLive. AdLive was a CPaaS vendor, communication platform as a service. They were, at the time of acquisition, the best one out there to do video communication if you needed an API, a simple API on the cloud to build that. Snapchat just took them out of the market, said no more customers we're not going to onboard any other customer anymore because we're taking that and just acqui-hiring everyone. We don't care about customers, just the technology. And the next day, and well, actually this quarter or the next, they are going to even shut down to their existing customers of AdLive and just close the service for them. And you see these acquisitions, these huge acquisitions that relate specifically to WebRTC. And then there are acquisitions that are WebRTC is there, but is not the main part of it. I still count them, but I look at them from a different angle. Sometimes a company would be acquired because of their customer base, like Akano being acquired by Cisco, I think last year. Okay, so it's not exactly last year, 2015. It's not exactly because of WebRTC, but one of the main pillars of technology that Akano had was WebRTC. And what we see in 2016 is a slowdown in number of acquisitions that happened in the market. If in 2015 we had around 25, 2016 we had 15, and this year we're just beginning of February, and I already have 3 or 4 different acquisitions that already occurred. So this year, it's going to be interesting. We're going to see a lot of acquisitions probably, at least if this pace continues at this speed. Now, out of these acquisitions in 2016, there were a few that were very interesting. And I'll start from, let's say, left to right. So we had Series, a holdings company of sorts, that decided to acquire 2 assets, Polycom and Sura. Both Polycom and Sura has WebRTC. For Polycom, I say it's not that interesting or not that important for them, but it's there. For Sura, on the other end, it's different. Sura serves the telcos. One of the things that they are called Sura because it's a merger between Converse and Decision. Converse itself acquired before that Soliames, a company that had WebRTC, and Decision acquired Crocodile RCS, which was a kind of a CPaaS platform. And then Decision called that Forge, and that was part of Decision, which became part of Sura, which is now part of Series. And last month, it seems that there are changes in Sura in how they are looking or dealing with the API platform. So there are some changes there in the staff, and the future of that platform is a bit clouded in a way. Then the most interesting acquisition in 2016 for me when it comes to WebRTC is definitely Microsoft acquiring Beam. Beam is a company, was a startup company. It was out on the market for, I guess, less than a year. It was built by, I don't know how old were they, but they were kids, too small to be acquired, too young to be acquired. What Beam was doing was build a live streaming platform for gaming. What they did was say, okay, we have these stupid things where someone plays another watch, and it's a huge market that I just don't understand. Twitch was acquired for $1 billion by Amazon a few years ago for that thing, and there's a whole lot of an issue of people watching other people playing video games. And Beam decided to do something similar, a platform that developers would be able to take their game and add interactivity on top of that with these people that are watching. And in order to have interactivity, you need to make it as live as possible. So they need something low latency, and they ended up picking WebRTC as a technology and an open source framework called Janus, which they used and built their system around. Microsoft saw traction of gamers and people watching, and they simply acquired it and made that part of their Xbox launch a few months ago. And they're still continuing to work on that, which is, that was very interesting to me. Then there's Twilio going and acquiring Currento. Currento is an open source platform that many use to build their own WebRTC service on premises. And Twilio simply acquired that probably to build their own infrastructure for their CPaaS platform to be able to do many things on the server side. Cinch, another CPaaS platform, in December was quietly acquired by CLX Communications for something around, I think it was $14 million. and you see another CPaaS platform getting acquired. So a lot of these dynamics and activities happen around these CPaaS vendors and where they're at and what they're doing, and that brings a lot of people to ask questions about the type of technologies that they are going to invest in and to put their money on when they build their platforms on top of them.
Great. So I suppose I'm amazed that you can keep all that straight. Just the amount of movement in the WebRTC space is phenomenal, and even within the CPaaS area there is just so much churn, I suppose. So if I was trying as a consumer of this kind of CPaaS service to find a platform that could, that would have some sort of longevity, so I can actually build something and it's going to be up and working, then I would humbly offer Vidyo.io as being that platform. We've been in the business of building video SDKs, API experiences for the last 10 plus years. We have thousands of customers. We're the video engine behind a bunch of brand name collaboration platforms that you might be familiar with. So we have a depth of experience and a real commitment to this CPaaS and moreover, multi-party video API space. We think that Vidyo.io is, if you're looking for a service to build something that is very heavily video oriented, it's we've crafted it to be the best that we can possibly make it, and it will help you to be able to support many participants, but also support many platforms, share content, do content shares, do high quality audio, uses Opus codecs for audio, and it's just it's the sum of everything we've learned about being able to do multi-party video across networks. So that's the kind of the Vidyo.io offer, as it were. So I guess wrap up to you, Sahi, and then we can dive into some questions maybe.
Yes, I guess when it comes to WebRTC in 2017, the only question I would try to ask myself if I was a vendor building some kind of a business, no matter what it is, it's what am I going to build with WebRTC? Where can communication fit into my business processes in a way that can be programmatically added and embedded into that service? And I guess that with that question, we're going to move to the audience questions.
Absolutely. I might, there's a great one here. There's a couple of good questions related to Vidyo.io specifically, so I might just pick up a few of those first, Sahi, if that's okay. There's a question from Carl Morelli about recording on Vidyo.io. So we have a form of client-side recording which can be supported today with Vidyo.io, but we're working on in alpha we have basically it's a server image, a Docker container or a virtual machine that you'll be able to spin up anywhere you like and participate in a Vidyo.io conference and record to storage that you control. And you might ask, well, why do you want to do it that way? Well, because of the kinds of verticals that we've addressed in the past, we're very aware that people are concerned about data at rest when it comes to video and audio content. So having all of our video streams are encrypted, but if you have ownership of the one component where that might end up on a disk, then we feel like you'll have more confidence about where the recording is being done. So it's very easy to spin up one of these or multiple. It's a clusterable technology as well. So if you've got a lot of recording happening, then it scales beautifully. But you'll be able to spin up this as in your hosting platform of choice and be able to record to storage that you control. So it's a high quality recording experience. You've also got control there about the composition. So if you've got a multi-party, you've got 16 participants, you can make decisions about where the tiles go and how it should all be laid out. So look for that in the coming weeks. We'll be able to announce this server-side recording solution. Hopefully that answers that. There was another question here from Oscar about video, wondering whether video was supported on Edge. Maybe you'd like to tackle that one, Sahi. Obviously ORTC, not a complete standards compliant implementation of the WebRTC 1.0 standard.
I guess we need to start from understanding what the status of Edge today is. Edge supports WebRTC to some extent today. The version that you have on the market, the stable version, it has audio support to it with using the Opus voice codec, and that's interoperable with Chrome and Firefox. But for the video side, they use a codec called H.264 UC, I think, or UC H.264, which is their own proprietary codec that they have running on their Skype asset. So you cannot interoperate with it in any possible way. What they did last week was announce that the next release of the Edge browser is going to support VP8 and H.264 as video codecs. Hence, it is interoperable with Chrome and Firefox. They made it a point to make sure that it interoperates and almost behaves like a Chrome browser when it comes to H.264 and VP8. So that's available today in their, whatever they call their beta product, and it is going to be released officially when they release the next version of Windows 10, called, I think, the creators version of Windows 10, and that's going to be during fall. And then you will start seeing companies adopting that. But then the next question is, do you really need to adopt Edge in your platform? It still has very low market share, and it's not growing or not growing fast enough. And I would first question the need inside the company before adopting it. But that, again, just me.
Okay, great.
Another question.
There's one at the top of the list I might dive on quickly, Tahi. An interesting one from Ed Ramsey asking about smart glasses, or in particular the Microsoft HoloLens. So the HoloLens I have less detail about because it's an expensive unit and they haven't sold very much of them apparently, according to Microsoft. But what I do see is a more broader trend around kind of the second generation of smart glasses. Obviously, Google Glass came and went. It was not a success really. Maybe is a very, very 0.1 version of what we might see with the smart glass. It was an interesting experiment, we might say. But we're seeing some more serious pieces of hardware now from companies like Vuzix and ODG. Sony has something in the market. It's a bit bulky, but it's getting better. And so this comes back to the point that I made about Video I/O on Android supporting Intel. So a number of the smart glass manufacturers are actually using the Atom, the x86 chipset. So you need to make sure that the video platform that you're selecting, if you want to do some kind of smart glass field services integration where you've got, see what I see, and that being a native experience, you need to make sure that you've got the right platform support to be able to kind of integrate with your chosen hardware. So it's definitely an emerging area. We've done a bunch of prototypes. We've done some small projects with production deployments for specific customers, but I expect to see more in 2017 around smart glasses.
Okay, do you want me to pick the next one from Dean Bubley?
Go grab it.
Okay, so hi Dean. So you were asking about the analysis that I've done on company solutions exiting the market. Okay, companies that go bust, solutions that are no longer being sold or supported, and the trends of what doesn't work. So if I try to think about, let's say, what types of businesses you see done on top of WebRTC, then the professional ones are either those that are building a service, and for that specific service, they need the ability to communicate. So, I'm in the healthcare business, I've got this problem, and I need to be able to get, sick people to be able to call the hospital. Then I do something with WebRTC. Then there are the other types of vendors that provide tools for the other companies to build something with. So, in the past it was I have a PBX, I have an SBC, that's nice. Today I've got a CPaaS platform. Okay, I provide something, a service in the cloud, or I've built this framework, usually an open source one. And the third one are just those that offer consulting. The ones that are building stuff for the real market, that are solving a problem of real people, of users, the healthcare one, for example, these would die practically in the same type of percentage that you see them dying with or without WebRTC. It's a matter of them being able to do the product market fit of whatever it is that they are doing. So WebRTC is a piece of what they're doing, and that's about it. Now, on those that offer just technology, it doesn't work anymore with the stance of, if you build it, they will come. It worked a lot better when what you did was voice over IP. And there are a lot of vendors today that did voice over IP in the past and are just looking how they can do the same with WebRTC. And it doesn't work unless you pivot and do something that is considerably different. One way to be different is to go and open source something and build on top of that. We've seen BlueJimp coming up with the Jitsi video bridge, getting acquired by Atlassian. Currento getting acquired by Twilio. Janus still out there, probably will get acquired at some point in time. The other option is to go to the cloud and offer something for developers. When you do that move like Vidyo just did, you need to be very, very sharp at how you differentiate and what difference do you bring into the market. If you don't do that, you're just going to drown between the other large vendors that are already doing things there. Those that are doing outsourcing, the better they are in what they do, the more customers they will get.
No, absolutely. I think, and that's back to your slide about the difference between horizontal players and vertical players. We're very clear that, there are people, CPaaS vendors out there that are terrific at voice, that are terrific at messaging of various kinds, notification APIs, all that kind of stuff. Real-time synchronization maybe even comes into that area, PubNub and those sorts of services. That's not us. We are we are focused purely on high-quality, multi-party video collaboration on any kind of platform, any kind of endpoint, and that's really what we're focusing on. So maybe grab a couple of other questions here. There's an interesting question from Oren Dennison from ANTHC, and he's asking, what is the relationship between Vidyo.io and another one of Vidyo's products, which is called Neo? Neo is our next generation of kind of the video conferencing full-fat client. They're kind of two separate streams at the moment. Vidyo Neo fits into the video cloud world, which is if you want a full function video conferencing platform, then that's a great offer for you. You can go and subscribe on a per user basis. It's all there. You can sign in and use it like any other kind of video conferencing platform. Vidyo.io is more focused on the kind of the embedded use cases, though in the coming months we'll be announcing some features that sort of blur the lines between those two worlds, and running Neo, joining video conferences from Neo and vice versa, and kind of having some participants coming in one way and other participants coming other ways, definitely not out of the question. So we'll be bringing them all together.
So there is another question from Oscar. I find this question, kind of amusing. What's the difference between WebRTC and ORTC? WebRTC will disappear soon. Well, the opposite is true. ORTC no longer exists. It's dead. What you have today is either WebRTC or WebRTC. Now, there are things or concepts in ORTC that are making their way into WebRTC, and that's going to continue. So whatever you're trying to do or focus on WebRTC, not on ORTC.
Yep, absolutely. That's the trend that we're seeing as well. And that's, I suppose, why we have not jumped through any hoops backwards in order to try and support the ORTC standard that Edge kind of had half implemented. So, and we're really keen to see that, and we're really pleased that Microsoft have decided to implement the full WebRTC standard. So that's exciting. So what else have we got here? We've got some more questions. We'll run out of time a little bit. We might run over. We've got lots of questions, so maybe as long as people don't mind, we might keep on answering a few questions. But otherwise, thank you very much for your time, and we hope it's been useful. So let's pick a few more. What have we got here? There's a question from Tom Chapman about HIPAA compliance. So as I understand it, and I'm certainly not an expert in HIPAA compliance, but I understand there's 2 levels of compliance. When you are not using recording, we don't believe there's any PII, the personally identifiable information. That is, as long as you don't include PII yourself when you're creating an app on top of Vidyo I/O. So that basic level of compliance should be in place, and certainly all the building blocks that we're using in assembling Vidyo I/O in terms of hosting providers are certainly HIPAA grade, healthcare grade. We're not saying that the service is full HIPAA compliant just yet, but that's something that we hope to be able to announce later in the year. What else have we got here? We have an interesting question from Sunil Senapati from Cognizant about how Vidyo I/O fits into the omni-channel contact center space. I think that's a great question. So omni-channel is the kind of, well, has I suppose for the last 3 years or thereabouts been the hot term in contact centers, and people like our partner Genesys are very focused on omni-channel, but there's a whole slew of, Genesys is the biggest player, and then there is a whole long tail of little disruptive players in that omni-channel space. I guess the easiest way of answering this question as posed is we don't seek to be, in any case, in any sense, an omni-channel provider. We work very closely with contact center providers like Genesys and some other players in that space, and we add high quality video. So we're one of the channels. We're one of the channels in the omni-channel experience. We're certainly never going to be the only channel. There's always going to be chat and phone and all sorts of notification channels that might exist. But we want to be, when it comes for an omni-channel service to need video, we really want to be there and be able to provide that high quality video. So there's another question here from Sean Bow about does Vidyo I/O support any legacy IE browsers? And the answer is yes, we do. We support back to IE9, and it is with a small plugin that just gets seamlessly downloaded when you try and when you start up the experience, when you start an application which is built with a Vidyo I/O client library in an IE browser, will automatically guide the user through the process of installing that plugin. It's a relatively painless experience. Obviously, it is a plugin, so there's a the user has to say yes, I accept the plugin. But beyond that, it's a very smooth process. And then you get, even in really old IE versions, you get this nice high quality video experience, which uses the latest codecs that we have. It uses the latest audio codecs and interops with natively with all other endpoint types. So we're pleased about being able to do that as well. There's a question from Gordon from NCR about WebRTC mobile browsers on Android. And the honest truth is we're not seeing a lot of, even though it's technically possible to support that WebRTC experience in Chrome. You can do it with Vidyo I/O as well. You can use Chrome Mobile with Vidyo I/O. But I guess the question, we would never recommend that, because the experience of a downloadable app, which includes our hand-optimized video libraries, is much better than anything that's available in mobile WebRTC today. Better in lots of dimensions, better in terms of the quality, better in terms of efficiency. We're kinder on the battery life. There's lots of reasons why we think that in the medium term, maybe things will change. Maybe the WebRTC implementations on mobile platforms will get better. I'm sure they will. But for the next, I'd say probably at least 2 years, as far as I can tell, we would recommend an app-based approach for great quality experience. with embedded video in the mobile space, and that goes for tablets as well. Mobile tablet, that sort of space. That's what we'd recommend. Are there any other questions that you'd like to answer there, Sahi, that jump out? There's a question around. What else have we got here?
I guess there's one, just because I want to show the difference. There was one from Leonardo Gutierrez about the difference, or how can we differentiate Rich Call IO from Vidyo IO. So I just took a look at Rich Call IO. It's one of the companies in my list of vendors. If you look at what Rich Call IO does at the end of the day, it's a kind of a click-to-chat experience that you can embed into websites. So the experience is something that gets embedded into a website, but you have a lot less customization capabilities around that. They already decided how this should look like. And there are many different types of these kinds of solutions out there. And what I like about them is that I haven't seen any of their customers. They might have, they might not have. I just don't know. They are one of these vendors that are there on the sidelines of using things around WebRTC. I just don't see them enough to be able to say anything about them, but they're not a pure play when it comes to CPaaS. They're not really a communication platform as a service.
Yeah.
Okay, so just bear that in mind.
And
it's not apples to apples that you're trying to compare here.
And that's where kind of having many global points of presence and big clusters of the infrastructure that goes behind these services, and dedicated people that are trying to make sure that we're striving for 4 or 5 nines uptime. Really telco grade services is what Vidyo IO is all about, and I suppose it's another differentiation against some of the smaller WebRTC players. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for joining us. We hope that it's been an interesting and useful webinar for everyone. And of course, I really encourage people to sign up for Vidyo IO, go and have a play with it, and then tell us what you're going to build. We're really excited to see what you'll create with this new capability. And I wanted to thank Sahi very much for joining us and helping us with this webinar. And I think that's everything from us. I'm Nicholas Reed, and thanks a lot.